Empty pockets never held anyone back. Only empty heads and empty hearts can do that. Norman Vincent Peale. Well, my friends, keep your heart open. Keep your heads in the game. Let's spend a few minutes together figuring out where these markets are. Stocks are rebounding up some for the day, along with Bitcoin, gold, and bonds are down. We see a red down candle forming for the week with a wick on the bottom. Price percent oscillator still heading down. Derivative oscillator still gaining downward momentum. Look at the first day of this latest 2-day candle. Solid green spinning top, long wick on the bottom, little wick on top. No recovery, of course, yet from that big down move on the last 2-day candle. This is a slowdown in the down movement. Price percent oscillator had been really heading down quite strongly. It's shaved off some of that downward momentum, and the price percent oscillator is cutting back. Now, this is just the first day of the latest 2-day candle. Price is still well below the 2-day and the weekly trend line, so we'll keep an eye on things. One day doesn't change anything. What do we see on the half day? We see where things had been tracking down for 2 days, slowing down in the afternoon. Yesterday with this solid green candle, popping up in the morning, on Tuesday morning, and further up in the afternoon. Even on the shortest chart, still negative on the price percent oscillator and the derivative oscillator. Both are heading up at this point. That is where we are on stocks overall. Well, the S&P at least. We'll get to the NASDAQ 100 in just a minute. Overall, though, there's still lots of downward pressure. Now, the NASDAQ 100 rebounding the most, 2.23%. We see still a red down candle, price percent oscillator pulling away from the red signal line, derivative oscillator gaining downward momentum. 2-day chart, like we saw on the S&P, flattening some on that price percent oscillator. Derivative oscillator still negative, losing some downward momentum. Green spinning top after a red down candle that prior 2-day, first day of this latest one, still well below the 2-day and the weekly, so we still have lots of downward pressure here. Half day, we can see where in the morning and afternoon up candles. The first we've seen in a few days after, 2.5 days of down movement, slowing yesterday afternoon. Still hasn't crossed over going up yet, but appears to be headed that way. We'll see what happens on Wednesday and then Thursday. Remember, markets are closed on Friday for Christmas Eve. So that's where we are on stocks. Still lots of downward pressure, bit of a recovery try today. We'll see what happens from here. Look at 20-year bonds, down for the day 0.38%. We see this week a red spinning top is forming. Price is pushing below that 2-day trend line on the weekly chart, still above the weekly. We can see where price downward pressure has pierced that weekly trend line. Price percent oscillator still positive, heading down. Derivative oscillator positive, losing upward momentum. The 2-day trying to cross over. We will see if indeed that occurs. Of course, when that occurs, that takes us out of any up trade. If you had possibly stayed in this long, a number of reasons why not to have. But again, remember, that's always your last chance before you lose everything after we had that crossover going up a while back. So we'll keep an eye on things. If the market's up tomorrow, this could pull right back through, but that derivative oscillator accelerating down, price percent oscillator trying to cross over. Remember, that candle won't finish forming until the close of the market on Wednesday. And then we look at the half day, down in the morning, recovering a little bit in the afternoon. Price percent oscillator is sliding sideways. So, well, it's flattening out as we look at things. Derivative oscillator gaining some downward momentum. So we will keep an eye on things here on bonds. It's been a little tricky with these things lately, so we'll pay attention and see which way they end up going. Now, let's move from bonds to gold. Gold just about flat, barely down, 0.04%. For the week, it's trying to draw a green open box spinning top for us. However, that price percent oscillator still trying to cross over, going down. Derivative oscillator's gone negative. We'll see how this continues to move. For the week, we might have a weekly crossover. Weekly vertical crossover going down at the end of the week. Of course, that would be on Thursday since the market's not open Friday. What do we see going on the 2-day chart? First, this latest 2-day candle gone from that strong up movement in the prior one to a red open box spinning top, lots of indecision. Price percent oscillator still negative. Derivative oscillator just barely negative. We look at the half day. There we go, the half-day chart. We can see 2 days of down movement in gold, but not enough to cross over going down. Price percent oscillator about flat. Derivative oscillator losing upward momentum. So we'll keep our eye on gold. Again, lost a lot of its energy, particularly with those 6 days of down movement and 3 days now of sideways sliding. We'll keep an eye on things there. What about Bitcoin? Big up day for Bitcoin, up 5.14%. Doesn't change the fact that we still have lots of downward pressure on Bitcoin. Price percent oscillator heading down, derivative oscillator gaining downward momentum. Red down candle drawing price well below the weekly trend line. 2-day chart. We can see where that downward movement has slowed some in its acceleration down. That's why we see the derivative oscillator losing momentum. Price percent oscillator is also flattening, but still have a red spinning top that is forming. Price is trying to get over that 2-day trend line, still well below the weekly half-day. We can see where this is, again, we had, an up day back on Thursday of last week, the 16th. And what is it trying to do on Tuesday? Popping up in the morning, up in the afternoon. It's pushed through that 2-day trend line. So again, well below that weekly. So still lots and lots of downward pressure on Bitcoin. That is where we are as we continue to keep our eye on these markets and see how things go this Christmas week. We so appreciate you being with us. We'd love to hear from you. CW@chartingwealth.com. Merry Christmas. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.